Well, thank you so much for being here. I have Vidal Sassoon on the podcast. And I don't know if you probably don't remember this. So this is how we actually initially connected. So I was asked to lead a Clubhouse meeting when Clubhouse was happening in like 2021. And I led this Clubhouse meeting. And I think people were a little bit shocked because it was an AA meeting and I shot heroin and lived in a doghouse and shared that.
It's coming back to me. Keep going. I love you right now.
Shared that.
Yes.
And a few people were like, oh, wow, thank you for sharing. I think they were a little surprised. And I saw, Eden pop up and, oh, thank you for sharing. That was great. You were like super warm and, just saw your first name. And I was like, thanks. And then we get off the phone and I check my Instagram and I have a follower that says Vidal Sassoon. And I was like, oh, how cool. She's got the same name as, the guy. And I opened your thing and I was like, she's got the same name as the guy because the guy is her fucking dad. And she just followed me. I was fucking floored.
You're so cute. So, I mean, well, that means we're family in more than one, in more than one regard. Right. Like, yeah, I love it because it's what you see is what you get. Like, I am no different because I'm dad's daughter than I am as just like the girl that, sort of lives in the canyon on top of the, in a treehouse. Right.
Well, and that was clear because you were like, thank you for sharing. And you followed me. And I was like, oh my Lord, this is like, I was very flattered.
It's funny because thank you. But I'm really I'm flattered. I'm flattered that you asked me to do this today, to be able to share with you, our wherever this conversation leads and in hopes that it can help one person, right? That to me means everything. So it's interesting when I hear the kindness and the sweet stories, but what we place on others. And thank God that I do represent what I do represent, because other people place this thing on people that they're this and they're that. And no, in actuality, you and I am you, and we come from a place of love, and hopefully we can share that, So I love that you see in me what you saw because I am that. But other people, I think,
no, they don't. Sometimes. You're very accessible. You're very accessible. Because then I was like, she was on the fucking Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and she's following me on Instagram.
I love you.
Accessible, and it's very, very cool. So I do want to start with that though, because I think anybody would want to know, and I certainly want to know. So for anyone listening, her dad is Vidal Sassoon. If you don't look good, we don't look good, right? And
I think that most of your guests, if they're 35 and older, maybe 30 and older, they'll know. Others who are younger, you might want to Google. I mean, if you're interested in the history of
So what was it? You grew up in Beverly Hills?
I did grow up in Beverly Hills. I was born in New York. And then at that time, 6 months after I was born, the company went from London to New York. We were born, and then we moved to, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills.
And did you know that he was super famous and that these hair products were everywhere? At what age did you become aware of that?
I was pretty young. I mean, I just saw a lot of big, right? Like the house was big. There were people around. We had the dogs were big. The dog run was big. The pool was Olympic size. Everything was big and a lot. And I had a man who I didn't know initially taking me to school that had a gun in his leg, like security, ex-policeman. My dad's offices were big. Like everything was just big. So I obviously I sort of started to make my own, hey, what's going on here? This is interesting. And when we go places, my dad gets a lot of attention. What does that mean? Granted, I did go to the salon a lot after school and made friends with all the stylists. And it was sort of like they were my buddies. So I started to understand, okay, my dad, has something to do that's big in this world with hair. And then I just started putting the pieces together. But he was always dad. He'd come home when he was in town and sing us songs and make us breakfast and try to be, the most available that he could, that he was capable of too. Right. So I think we were given the right, tried to keep us as, I don't want to use the word normal,
as normal as possible. Okay.
Yeah, as normal as possible. Then hey, your life is really big, because that's kind of doesn't resonate well.
Did you go to Beverly Hills High? Is that a school? Is that real?
Okay.
I did. Wait a minute. Am I confusing 90210 for real life? Okay.
No. See, that's funny you say that because I went to Beverly and I left my junior year because I was in Beverly Hills from the time I was 6 months old till still right down the street. And we left my junior year. And so when I got, and that was when 902 came out, and all these girls on the East Coast was like, this bitch is coming from Beverly Hills. Who does she think she is? Blah, blah. And I show up
Yeah.
as me. And with, of course, my roommate at the time who just left, she came to visit me last weekend, hated me for no reason. Just I was the Vidal's daughter from Beverly Hills, and she was a girl from Cleveland, Ohio, and she had to, draw that. Within 2 weeks, she loved me. We're still best friends. We see each other all the time. We talk all the time, and she's like my sister. But it just goes to show that, like, the judgment
Totally.
of, wait, is that a real school? It's a bit,
Totally.
and yeah, I mean, hey, it was a great school. I can see where, you make a TV show out of it in Hollywood, just as cut to today or years ago of like, oh, are these real housewives of Beverly Hills? Housewives, are they married? Is this a real thing?
So where did you go to in New York or the East Coast? You said you moved. Yeah.
When
Where
I
did you go?
oh, I went to boarding school in New
Okay.
Jersey. It was literally one road about a couple miles long, and it was an all girls boarding school. And one of my best friends was leaving, and I said, you know what, Nicole, if you're leaving, I'm going with you. I'm done. I got to
Oh,
get
so
out.
you chose to go there.
Oh yeah, no, they didn't send me. I was a really good kid. I was kind of, I mean, I think for educational purposes and, being a little less social, it would have been nice to get out of town, and my parents probably would have been really happy, but I
Okay.
chose to get out and see
Okay.
something else. If I were really smart, I would have moved to like Italy and been like, see
Totally.
y'all. I'm not
So
coming
you go
back.
to New York, you graduate high school, or I mean, I'm sorry, in New Jersey. And then did you go to college after that? What did you do after that? Did you want to be a hairstylist at that time, or what did you want to do?
No, so that's interesting. You just said it like that because you're going to be like, wait, what? So I went to school, came back for my senior year, and then I went to a school down in Orange County, Chapman, to study psychology. And I never got into hair. I never was a hairdresser. I opened my salon when my father was towards the end of his life and his illness, thinking, he said, I had kids, and he said, well, what are you going to do with yourself? And this was prior to, I already sort of had this conversation with him about when he first found out he was sick and he didn't tell me, and he brought me over to the house and he's like, so what's next? You had got married, you had kids. Now what? And I was like, what do you mean now what? Like, I have to do something, I can't just be a mom. I literally was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah. I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I can't just do work to work. I'm not that person. I need to like dig deep and find parts of myself and offer that up, and let that be of service and find that financial exchange within it. So I loved Pilates at the time. So he always taught me. And I opened a Pilates studio.
So I also love Pilates. I just did Pilates right before we got on. And that's one of my favorite
Congratulations.
parts of your story also. Okay, so you opened Pilates studios first before, because you also had some
Yes.
hair salons.
I opened one hair salon.
Okay.
My brother
Okay.
has a few back east. Yeah.
Okay. Did you teach Pilates also, or did you just run them and take classes?
That's what I do. And this is something I found out. When you open businesses, you either know what to do or what not to do. So I know a lot of what not to do. They were great
Me too.
businesses, but yeah, right. Which is, I mean, invaluable lesson. Unless you're going to teach and be involved in the business really hands-on and in front, let's look at why you're really doing this. But I love the social aspect. I love getting people involved in Pilates. I love sharing I would take class with everyone. I mean, it was like, people would come, we'd sit, we'd have these long conversations and tears and just like really like life, beautiful life. So that was sort of what I loved about it. But if you're looking at a business, in terms of numbers and financial, then, unless you're kind of teaching a lot of classes and you're involved on the day to day and doing everything yourself, maybe don't do that.
Listen, I just owned a spin and bar and Pilates studio myself
Oh,
during
well,
the
there you
pandemic
go.
and sold it. And I taught and was involved in the day to day, and still, like,
Still,
I feel like
right?
unless you want to franchise and do rounds of funding with investors, especially in Southern California where the market is so saturated. And I look back and sometimes I think I just sold a year ago and I loved my studio. I loved it, loved it, loved it.
Congratulations. Yeah.
But unless you want to, get funding and franchise, the margins are pretty narrow. And you know what I mean? And so what was the name of your studio? I'm just curious.
Very. Originally, it was Pilates plus Beverly Hills, which was based off of Sebastian Legree's
Okay.
Pilates methods. And then that sort of turned into something else. And I said, you know what, Sebastian, you're going your way. I want to stay more traditional. So I'm just going to call it Eden by Eden Sassoon and stick with sort of what the teachers bring, these great teachers that I love to take from. I'm going to share that with, so you had the mix of traditional, you had the mix of a little more upbeat with weights, there was a lot of different things happening. And yet I still like to pull it back to like, let's stick to what we know that works, which is
Right.
the traditional sense of Pilates, I think.
Right. So
Yeah.
in the midst of all of this, when did you start drinking and using, and what does that start to look like as you're growing up? And
I mean, I was 15 when I took my first drink, and we were going to Off the Wall, I think it was called, a club. How I got in, just we knew up, knowing everyone, and you could kind of get in anywhere. And I was drunk. I was drunk. I was free. I was happy, but no one wanted to see me like that because my sister was in her addiction, and everyone was like, "What? What are you doing? Do you want to be just like your sister?" I like knew it, saw it before I did. And then, of course, my gut kicked in. My gut kicked in and knew that, oh, this is a problem. Literally the first time I drank because I could just, there she goes. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of a lifelong journey of the addiction, right? Because alcohol was a solution, but until it wasn't anymore.
how old was your sister then?
So if I was 15, she was 19, but she started in her addiction probably at 12.
Okay. And by 19, so if people were saying, do you want to be like your sister? Where was she and what did that look like when she was 19? How did people know?
Oh, she was wild. She
Okay.
ran this city. She was Beverly Hills, New York. I'm an actress. I was a model, always shot herself in the foot, never could be more, do more. She didn't believe in herself, but everyone knew and loved my sister, but also knew and watch out, here she comes. But she was, the best of the best and the worst of the worst. So, it was hard to get away from being Kat's little sister. For sure. You grow up, you go to Beverly, you have her generation, which is 5 years older than me, my brother's, which is 3 years older than me, my other brother, who was sent away most of the time, which is 11 months older than me. And then there was me. And I don't know if you know this, but the one brother that I was just saying that it's 11 months older than me, we just lost him September 15th. So, addiction runs deep. And granted, he wasn't blood, he was adopted. But that being said,
yeah, I did know that. I'd seen that on your Instagram, but I'm not sure how did he actually pass?
We're waiting on the toxicology report, but he was deep in his addiction for many years. How many years has that been? At least 8.
Okay.
8 to 10 years. It's pretty thick.
How old was he when he came to live with you guys when he was adopted?
3.
Okay, so he was raised in your family.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why did your parents adopt a child when they had 2?
So, well, they had 3. They had
Ultimately,
my sister,
right? But you were born after they adopted him, right?
No. So I had my
okay.
sister, my brother, and then me. And I was 2. So David and I were 11 months apart. So when I was 2.5, they wanted to adopt a child. And so my father was in the orphanage. It was his way of sort of giving back. And my mom wanted to be part of that. So she really sort of went on a super magical search for that person. And my brother Dave showed up.
Your father lived in an orphanage when he was a kid?
My father was so it was during the war. My grandmother couldn't take care of him. She had to put both of her sons in an orphanage so they would be safe. And for 5 years, 5 to 8 years, he was in an orphanage.
Oh, wow.
And she would come visit him once a month.
And then did he go back to her eventually when she was ready?
He ran away from the orphanage, I think, the first year and went to his father's house. And his father saw him and walked him right back to the orphanage, and they never spoke or saw each other again.
Oh my gosh.
Ever.
That's
so
wild.
After, isn't that just like, wait, what? So after she finally got them out after the war, they went back and lived with their mother.
Oh my gosh. And then he became who he became. And that's a whole other, I'm going to have to read about your dad because I you know what I mean? I was researching you, not him, but like, that's wild. I didn't know that. That's so impressive that he went from
his story.
That's wild. That's humble beginning.
Fascinating.
To,
you
know, that's crazy.
Yes,
wow.
Had nothing and continued to have nothing, and then continued to, when the war was still going on and afterwards, he was a Jew raised in London. He was 21. Or maybe it was done when 21. I've got to get the dates right. He flew to Israel and fought for the Israeli army.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool. And then he became a world famous
And then he,
international superstar,
that was
celebrity.
strange. And then he came back and he was like, well, grandma took him into like be an apprentice at one of these shops. And he was like, please, no, don't pick me, don't pick me. But he had these manners that he would open the door for grandma and that he was very polite. And, and the gentleman was like, hey, you don't have to pay to work here. You come work here. We'll start tomorrow.
And it was a barbershop. I mean, it had to have been a barbershop back then. And then
And
what,
he
he
would
was
just
just
sweep
like
the floors.
really good at it and loved it and became a stylist?
He just learned. He would sweep the floors. He would do everything he was told. He would, he really learned. But then he knew the next steps were that if he was going to take this further, he couldn't have the accent he had. So he went into classes and switched his vocabulary and the way that he worked with people. I mean, he really created, this essence of who he wanted to be and what he saw. And his passion was, architecture and people and the way that it shaped their face and women in that time. I mean, it couldn't have been the better alignment of the right thing, happening at the right time.
That's so, so cool. So I heard you say this on another interview and I thought it was fascinating. His motto, company motto is, if you don't look good, we don't look good. And you referenced that on another interview that I listened to you in terms of how that motto kind of played out like for you and in your family. Like, how did that affect you where you prayed to the dynamic of like, what I put out has to be kind of perfect? Did you feel that way?
Yes, right. But like perfect, what does that mean? So here one of my tattoos says perfectly imperfect, because that's something I've always struggled with, right? Because there was this idea of better. You could always be better. You could always be more. If you don't look good, then we. That's a really hard one to wrap your brain around when it
Yeah,
has
it is.
nothing to, right? Like, I have nothing to do with you. I have everything to do with my connection to source, whatever that looks like to me. And that's it. But no, this little mind wants to say, I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not skinny enough. I am not good enough. And if you look the way you do, then why shouldn't I, or vice versa? This is so I've been working really, really hard in all the years to unravel that and what that looks like and what that means and where the addiction steps in and steps out and how my mind just sort of attaches its things and the obsession, and the craving. And it's not necessarily just alcohol, because I'll remove the alcohol and I'll turn all those things that we're speaking of and turning it into food, which was my first addiction, and then turning it into men, and then turning it into, money, you name it, I'll do it. So it's really just finding the principles and allowing them to come into my life wherever I move, and like getting off my own back and giving it to the God that I understand.
Yeah.
Because that's the only relationship. If I can't find that relationship and get that right and to love myself, there is no way that I can have a relationship with a man, with my family, with my children, with anybody in the way that I want a relationship.
So what does finding that relationship, what does the work on finding that relationship look like for you? Because I do follow you on social media and I love that you do this. And I do want to backtrack and go through the timeline. But like while we're here on social media, you post the living clean, the daily reflections, the just for today, which I love. The just for today, the NA just for today is like probably my favorite one. I love it. It's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Same.
Even if you're not like an NA person, which I do
Right.
more this way, which uses the AA book, the NA just for today is so good. It resonates
so
with me
good.
so much. Also,
so good.
Look at the day of your birthday sometime and see if
Wait, I want to get it.
Yeah, get it and see what it is.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Excuse my sweatpants.
You're fine.
It's over here. Hold on. I'm getting it.
Yeah, you have to see.
They're all by my bed. Okay. So here we go.
Because I was like the most chronic relapser ever. And my birthday is May 14th. And the just for today on May 14th is, oops, we did it again. Held out again. That's the May 14th just for today.
Wait.
So see what your birthday is.
I want to see yours really quickly. There's yours.
I
Here
literally
it is.
think the first word is oops.
Mistakes.
There you go. See?
We all know how to feel and make them. That's great. And it
Is that
says
funny?
insanity is repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results.
Exactly. And
That's
I was like,
beautiful.
the most relapser ever. Okay, so what's your birthday
Okay,
and
so
what is the gift for today?
mine just for today, for June 19th. Let's see. A sense of humor.
Okay.
We find that when we lose self-obsession, we are able to understand what it means to be happy, joyous, and free. Now, if that's not the story of my fucking life, I don't know what is. The laughter in our meeting often surprises the newcomer. Let me just kind of get life on life's terms. That's how I started talking to you,
That's
right?
literally the first thing that you said. Oh my God. I don't think we were recording, but that's the first thing she said. Cause I was like, look at your hair. Your hair is beautiful. This is the hair that I want. And she was like, I mean, it's life on life's terms with my hair. But isn't that wild? Okay. So all my
That's
guys listening,
amazing.
look up the Just for Today for your day. Even if you don't have the book, you can Google it. And I'm telling you, it will be like the thing you work with. Isn't that crazy?
I love that you just said that. That's beautiful.
I also think that the AA cliche that we can't stand the most, there's all the cliches. I think the
Yeah,
one that you like, and some of them we just hate, right? I think the one that you hate the most is the one that you most need.
that makes sense. Well, it's like that what you resist persists, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
I love all the cliches. Like I love them. I'm like, tell me them. I mean, how many years did it take me to be like, oh, it works if you work it?
Right.
Fucking idiot.
Totally.
Do your work and it works.
I know. Mine, the one that I never liked is trust the process. Because I have no trust in any process at all. I'm constantly afraid of everything not working out. I want to control everything in my life. And so like I had this counselor at a rehab. I was homeless and in this rehab, and she'd be like, and I wanted to go into work search, but I kept relapsing. So they wouldn't let me go get a job. And like, because I was homeless, I couldn't leave without a job or whatever. And I was like, check it out. I'm 33 years old and I'm living in your dumb rehab. Like I need a job. Her name is Fabi. And she'd be like, Janine, you got to trust the process, Mija. And I'd be like, trust the process, Mija. But she was so right, So that's my other theory about that. But so
it's so great.
You read the Just for Today, you read the daily reflections. You obviously are like a seeker of, things like that, literature like that. What is the relationship? How do you build the relationship with source or with the God of understanding? What does that look like for you?
So it's right. So every morning, like I'm learning, and again, I relapsed too, right? I know you know that, but I went 9.5 years with sobriety, but not in recovery. And that's brutal. Abstinence is one thing, but great. The alcohol's not there, but you're left with self. And if I don't have these tools, oh my God, my brain, there were moments where I was like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Having no, will or drive to take my life, but like just that numb, empty, nothing, and ready just to be like, that's when I turned to drink.
Right.
That's what was my best idea in sobriety was, oh, let me have a drink. And then 10 months later, I was like, you know what? I cannot stand myself. I am done. This behavior, I said, when it shows up, and it showed up pretty fast, we're done. I hated myself even more. I was like, wait, why am I more depressed? Alcohol's a depressant. So I was on the search at that point to really do the work, to show up in AA and do the work.
Okay.
What does that look like? We know what that looks like, right? Like, so every day I do, the minute my brain clicks on and I wake up and I'm like, oh, happy. The minute this thing starts working, I'm discontent, I'm miserable, I'm agitated, the thoughts start going. So I stop. Okay, God, thank you for today. God, please bring more of your love into my life. Allow me to have the strength to give it over to you. That, and I go deep into it and I pray for my kids. I just, all of it. I have to start talking to God. And my sponsor actually showed me that because we pray together. And he's like, do you want to pray? And I was like, yes. And the minute I started that conversation with God,
okay,
the weight started lifting. The understanding kind of started coming in. The self, like it's always me. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know I was so self-centered.
yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, wait, I think I love people and I give. I'm dishonest and I'm self-centered. It's tricky, right? It's really tricky.
Let's talk about your first sobriety date about 10 years ago now, because you have about 6-ish months now, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, and thank you for being willing to talk about this. I think it's really important because 9.5 years is a long time, right? And I think it's so easy to get abstinent and not be doing, recovery anymore, or think that something like this, like my podcast, like this is sort of recovery, but like not really, right? Because there's a social media aspect of this and it's promotional and there's all these other things. You know what I mean? So like,
But I believe it's recovery because if you're
you think,
in it
okay,
for the right reasons, and that's what we're doing here by sharing this,
right.
that's recovery. You're helping another alcoholic.
That's true. And I don't make any money from it, unfortunately. So
Right.
it's all for
Not
the
yet, at
kids.
least. And
Yeah,
when
not
you
yet.
do, you're right. But
Right.
you're allowed to, right? I
Yes.
understand that.
Right. Yeah, totally.
You're allowed to for the greater. That's just an exchange of energy.
Yes. Yes. No, I definitely agree with that. We're headed there. So 10-ish years ago, what did your drinking look like towards the end when you first got sober?
Your typical blackouts, peeing pants, setting my house up before I would leave because I don't know where, my nighttime medication, which you shouldn't be drinking on, for depression when my sister died. Prepping for a life that I had no idea what was going to happen once I took that first drink, which is a horrible way to live. Horrible way to live. My dad had just died. I was broken. I had just opened a business. My relationship after my dad died 2 weeks later left me. I was just broken. I really don't know how else to explain it. And of course, sometimes I personally don't like when people sit in what it was like because we know what it's like when I'm drunk. I'm a fucking mess. I'm acting like an idiot. I'm sleeping with men I shouldn't be sleeping with. I'm throwing up. I'm feeling like crap the next day. You name it. It happens.
And it was mainly alcohol with you, right? I feel like I've heard you say that in other podcasts. Alcohol was the primary issue.
Yeah.
And then the story is so cool of your last drink and the hike. Do you mind sharing that?
So the morning of my last drink, someone brought me home and put me in my bed. Some nice guy.
It was a waiter. Wasn't it the waiter at your restaurant?
There you go. God, you're so good. I think we were at so Pache down the street. See, I'm mixing these stories because they were so long ago, but he brought me home and he put me in bed. And of course I think I was trying to flirt with him and he was like, "You're safe." And so I walked over into my closet and I kid you not, I had an obsession with Nike. So I'm like putting on my Nikes. I picked the color. I'm crying. I like look up. I promise you, there's my dad, whether they were literally in form or dad and Jesus talking. I'm not kidding. They're talking and they're like disappointed. And how could you do this again? And just my heart is so heavy. I'm so sick. And this energy, they are talking to one another. Meanwhile, dad just died. So he's like somewhere in the process of here, there. I don't know. But this is happening. So I'm like, I need to get on the mountain. I need to get there fast. And I'm just broken. And so I'm walking, and I see this beautiful little lady. And I sort of like slow down by her and we just start talking. And like, I don't even know where the conversation like was going. And she said something about, she was a therapist. She is a therapist. We are still friends now. And I saw her again back in my coming back too. And I said, "Oh, body dysmorphia." We were talking about hiking and like our tennis shoes and just like shooting his shit. And she said, "I'm a therapist and I work with body dysmorphia." And I said, "Oh my God, I have body dysmorphia. Can you help me?" She goes, "I think you need to go to an AA meeting." And I was like, "What?"
And you weren't drunk. This was the next day. This was the next
Well,
morning.
no, I wasn't, but technically I was.
Oh, right. But you weren't like, it wasn't the night. This was the next
No.
morning. You had slept, woken up. Okay.
And I was like, okay. I took her number. I sort of walked down the hill. I went to the Country Mart, which is right here. And my friend Nick Savalas, who's been sober for, at that time, maybe, 18 years. I'm walking in, he's walking out. Boom. I'm like, if this isn't another God shot, first the closet. My dad and Jesus are literally pointing their finger at me. Then the woman, go to AA. And then Nick, I go, okay, I'm ready. He goes, "You're ready?" I go, "I'm ready. Where do we have to go?" "I'm ready." And he goes, "I'll take you right now to a meeting." And I'm like, "Well, hold on. Let me call," at the time, my ex-husband to see if he could watch the kids. He's like, "I'm busy, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Okay, tonight, I don't know. Let's go." And literally from that moment on, I found at that point, I was definitely living a sober lifestyle. I was in an outpatient program for 2 weeks and I was going to AA more because I needed the community than what as I really doing the work.
Okay.
So I was in the meetings and I was around the people and I was getting the message, but I wasn't doing the work.
Okay. Have you ever asked her why she said to you, go to a meeting? Have you ever asked her what made you say that to me?
No, and we were really close friends, and I can only imagine her answer being, we see one another in one another.
Yeah.
It's very clear, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you and I would probably do the same thing to the next person, you
Yeah.
know?
My sponsor always says that. She's like, you know how you can kind of tell in a room, like if somebody
Right.
might be in recovery, like you can kind of see like the tattoos, couple of tattoos, and lots of people have tattoos. But sometimes when I see tattoos, I'm like, you are an NA person. You know what I mean? Like I can just kind of tell. So, okay, maybe
Yeah.
she just knew. So did you get a sponsor at that time?
I got a few sponsors. So
Okay.
this is until now, which is
Okay.
what, 11 and a half years later. I had a few sponsors. I had the AA sponsors that everyone wanted, that everyone knew, that, you know, the daughter and the sister of should probably have.
Okay.
Well, that didn't work for me.
Okay.
Nothing worked for me because I didn't want it to work.
Okay.
I tried and I was trying, and I think I was just in so much pain, and that I didn't see what I see now, that going through that pain and using the steps are my way out.
Right.
I didn't see that then. I was just literally holding on for dear life.
Okay.
And it worked for 9.5 years.
Yeah. So you didn't do step work during that time?
You know, 1, 2, and 3 basic. I'm
Right.
back now. I just did NA step work for the first time, and
okay. In the workbook?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
The workbook's good.
I mean, it's amazing. So we literally started, because my sponsor knows all the programs. So he's like, what book speaks to you? And I said, I got to tell you, NA does. I don't, you know, drugs weren't my thing, but I can relate to it easily because Benjamin was my thing. That's a drug, right? So I guess that's considered speed. It is speed.
It's sort
right?
of.
Amphetamine, right?
Yeah.
We're like, wait.
Yeah.
I mean, at the bottom line, it's that same mental aspect is.
You know, it's so funny. In one of the interviews that you did, Rock to Recovery, I think, with the guy from Korn, he was like, it was so funny. I started cracking up laughing. He was trying to remember. He was like, well, they wanted to put me on something. I feel like it was an amphetamine. And I heard you were like,
list them all up.
Yes. You were like, Adderall? No. Phentermine? No.
Vyvanse?
You said like a Vyvanse? And he was like, no. And then he thought of it. And I was like, I just heard her say all the things. It was so funny. Okay, so you're doing the NA book, you know, now. And I wanted to ask you this, because in another interview in 2021, you were talking about meetings. And somebody said, are you still going to meetings? And you said, no, I'm not. I don't like going. You know, people kind of complaining, and I don't really like to do that anymore.
Oh, you heard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, I know now that she relapsed about a year later. Do we think that that's connected? What do you think of that now?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And the minute that I disassociate myself from them, I'm then different, and 100%.
Totally.
100%. Okay. And now I'm at the place with my sponsor where you find that balance, right? Yes. Meetings are medicine. That's our community. That's our group. But if that's all you're doing, then that's a problem. Right. So today I woke up and I said, hey, I'm feeling this way, and I'm going to have this great podcast. And he's like, stop it. Don't go to the meeting. We sat for 6 hours yesterday on step 1 in NA. And because there's 70 some odd questions.
Yeah.
60, and just everything. He's like, you're in a good place. Stop. It's almost as if I'm using that as like the next addiction.
Yes.
Right. So
totally.
he's like,
I've done that.
Right.
Yeah,
and you know what? And I appreciate it right now because it has kept me on track, and it is my community, and I am learning so much from it. But he's like, look, you are learning so much. We are doing so much. You tell me right now that sitting at home, doing your reading, writing, meditating with your dogs, with the trees around you, what you're not going to do with you and God in that place at a meeting. And I was like, good point. At your meeting are all your other sick friends coming together, which is your medicine that you need. But at home, by yourself with God, is all you really need.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he was kind of saying, don't worry. It's okay if you don't make it to a meeting today. You can do.
He said, don't go.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He said, if you want to do a meeting, you do it online. Because he sees me. He's like, your recovery's in your life, Eden. It's not just in those 4 walls.
Right.
When they tell you to do 90 and 90, which I've done this last six months, even more. He's like, let's pull it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to bring you right.
My sponsor says that too. She's like, just, living the principles day to day, right? If we're doing that. So 9.5 years sobriety, where does the show fall into this? And how does the show factor into your life emotionally, if at all? And by show, guys, I mean Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because you did 1 season on that show.
It factored in immensely. It was everything. Okay. It was emotional fucking mess. It
Okay.
like ripped my heart out, and that's not how I live my life. That's not who I am. And for some reason, I thought in my genius mind, when I'm not connected to source, being God, call it what you want, that I could bring light into a dark place, that being a reality show. Like, I really thought I could bring light into a dark place. They cannot get anything from me that I don't give them. Okay, bullshit. They can turn your words around. They can mess your story. Anything in the editing, like everything was different.
Ugh. But see, I see why you thought that. I see why you thought that. They can't take what I don't give, blah, 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 blah. But that's the fuckery of LA, man. You know, I lived there for a long time. I lived there for 8 years. And that is the fuckery of Los Angeles,
I'm
you
glad
know?
you got out.
Yeah, me too. Me
Congratulations.
too.
Yeah.
So you did the show and it was difficult. You did the show and it was difficult. Is
What were you gonna say?
I haven't
Um,
watched it. I haven't watched any of the Real
oh,
Housewives.
yeah. Don't. But if you go to season 7, and if you want to see pieces of it, having known me like in this, you actually go back and you watch that, and
I'll watch it now.
you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why are they treating her so meanly? Why do they throw her under the bus? And they're trying to make me out to be the bad guy when all I was really doing was showing up as you, and I can show up for someone else as
Okay.
far as in recovery, which at the time I wasn't in recovery like I am now.
Right. Okay.
So it's interesting, but it really took me back to like all these bullies, which I didn't usually ever really have to come across, but like I turned into, with my sister and my mom being both in recovery and my sister no longer with us, to the little girl, the little voice. I'm not going to step out of line or get, ruffle any feathers or get in trouble, or I just want everyone to find peace and love. And that's who I was on the show.
Okay.
Like, even to where, one of the girls was like, oh, she finally found her voice. And I'm like, bitch, I'm gonna punch. And I didn't. Like you really start to sell your soul to the devil when
Yeah.
you're in
Okay. I'm
those
going to watch
arenas.
it now. I'm going to watch your season now. And then contractually after a season, are you allowed to just stop? I don't know how that works. Did you say I'm
They
done?
didn't. So I wasn't a wife. I was a friend, and
Oh, okay.
they
Okay.
had no storyline to go on, so they used my storyline most of the time. So it was sort of like, what is she going to do? And had I did what I did, if you watch it, the last scene, which I went in, like everything came out of me,
Now
like
I
I
can't wait to watch it.
exploded. I literally lost it. I exploded, and it was real. Like the
Okay.
whole Vanderpump's house was like, everyone stopped because they play, they like fight, they bicker, they bitch. No, you fucked with my soul and my being, and I went at you. Like,
Ugh.
it was really intense, and I don't think people realize, like, you could see the veins in my head.
Yeah.
And it was my heart, and it was painful. So I think that it was, look, we'll let you know what we want, you let us know what you want. But by the greater powers that be in that world, it was easy for one of those or two of those women to be like, look, no, she's this, she's that. But had I had gone in and caused ratings to go up
Yeah.
the whole time, easily.
Then you could have stayed.
That's
Right.
not who I am.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
what I want.
Yeah. So what led to the relapse? What was going on? And what do you think led to that? Because I feel like that's what's important for, for people to hear.
No, I agree. You know how we say, we have to stay in the middle. I wasn't in a middle. It was COVID. It was my business, just my Pilates studios closing. It was kids at home. It was my son wanting to maybe go move to his father's house because he needed the father figure 24/7. It was all unmanageable for me in sobriety. I don't know how to sit in my pain or with my feelings. And so at this point, my job, everything that connected me to who I am as Eden Sassoon was gone, as I wanted it. But be careful what you ask for, because when it happens, and if you're not ready or have the tools, for me, I was on an airplane to go visit my brother in Boston, and I had been telling everyone I told everyone prior to me drinking that I was thinking about this, and everyone thought, oh, you don't have a problem. Well, no shit, I haven't had a drink in 9.5 years, and for the most part, I lived my life, I was working, I didn't have relationships that I wanted, but on the outside, everything seemed pretty, perfect, whatever that means. But I had my life technically together, right? But on the inside, I was melting. I was like, that show sucks. These people suck. I don't want to have this business anymore. I don't know what I want to do. I can't find a relationship, or because I don't have the tools to have the right relationships with these men. All of it. My kids are kind of getting older. He wants to go to his dad's. Nothing was safe. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So I had a genius idea that when I was on the airplane, I'm going to have a drink. And I passed out. And when I got there, I was sort of like, oh, that was a weird experience. I always wondered how people you go and you're in this safe little space in the clouds and you take a drink. Well, yeah, you have no stimuli coming at you. What's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? When you're in real life and you take that first drink as an alcoholic. So I thought I could manage it. And I did, and I tried, and I got away with that for the most part for a little while until I didn't. All of it just came back.
Okay.
All of it.
What was the impetus for you stopping again?
I said to myself that when you see the behavior that you know oh so well come back, come back, and it was slowly coming back. Like I noticed it the first time, if I'm really real with myself, then that should have been right in. I was done. I didn't. I was like, you need to see the behavior. So like my last weekend of drinking, we went to Vegas and I pissed my pants twice and I blacked out both nights and I tried to like break into the blackjack table and I didn't. Thank God that this guy I was dating took care of me because I have no idea where I would have ended up. So it took that behavior to be like, oh, I have to stop again.
So the behavior you were looking for was signs like that, signs of unmanageable drinking like that?
Yeah, signs of complete, demoralization of like nobody dates men that you don't like. You know what I mean? Nobody performs sexual. I hate it now because I'm taking a year off of I'm abstinent even in a relationship and sex
Okay.
because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right.
Okay.
It's not just not drinking. I'm not going to date men. Whew,
Okay.
it's the best feeling ever. It's not no dating sites, no flirting really. I have one friend in AA. He actually, it's great because he said to me, you're a newcomer, right? And I was like, yeah, yes, I am. And he said, oh, okay. And we went to a movie and like a premiere and we had a great time and you could feel the chemistry and the bond. And he's like, nothing, this can't happen until you have a year sobriety, if it ever does. And I was like, what? Like what? I could not compute the fact that someone was saying no to me.
Right.
And that it was a man that we were clearly like this chemical connection between us. I was dumbfounded. When now I sit and I'm like, I fucking love that guy.
Yeah.
He has enough respect for him and his sobriety not to take a risk on me and my crazy being when I'm not working the steps and have a solid year under my belt to like figure this out. This is not easy. I feel like a newborn child in a 50-year-old woman's body. 30, but I'm 50.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm going to challenge you on the 50-year-old body, but okay.
So I think, he taught me so much in that gave me this freedom of like, hold on, where's your self-respect, Eden? It's not even about like, hey, you want that guy. You don't like that guy. You don't care about that guy. It's the minute you get him, you're going to fucking bye. Like looking at all my character defects and really realizing them and how wrong they really are. But the fact that for so long I had no clue as to what this behavior is. Unbelievable.
So you went to Vegas and then you came back and
The
then
worst possible place to be.
Yeah. And then you went to a meeting Monday, or did you end up going to treatment, or did you reach out to somebody, or what did you do?
It was Sunday. We came back April 9th. See my 4-9, my
I saw
sobriety
the
last
4 on
date.
that side and I was wondering what that was actually. Okay, so it's a 4-9. Okay.
So it's Easter, which by the way is also my first boyfriend that I was telling you about when I first got sober. He left me after my father passed away, young boy, and his birthday's on 4-9.
Oh,
and he
God.
was always like, be the best version of you can ever be. So I was like, fine, I'll get sober. And then I got sober on his birthday the second time, which is like a cute little, just a fond memory. So yeah, it was a Sunday and I said, tomorrow I'm going back to AA. And I went back to AA. I called actually my girlfriend, Nicole, and she's like, it was a Tuesday that I was going to meet her. So I don't know if I went to my home group and then Tuesday I met her at a women's group in Beverly Hills. And I just was like on the cross, take me, take all of me. What do I need? I share it every day. I still do. I'm in it. I have a sponsor. I have 2 sponsors, to be quite honest, figuring that out. I so desperately surrendered and doing the starting NA step 1 yesterday. Like I was like, well, I'm doing AA steps. I'm on my 5th. No. Did you do 1 right for me?
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, how does everyone do 1? And like, oh, we just said, oh yeah, I'm willing. The fuck? No, this is a whole nother sense of willing, right? So I'm in that place, which I know and It hurts, it's painful, not in the sense that fear. I'm not in the fear base of this pain. I'm in an excitement about it. I want it to lift because I want the tools where I'm just learning day by day and I want it faster. I want it quicker.
Trust the process.
But yeah, there you go. I have to trust exactly.
So in LA, I've always been curious about this. Is there ever a concern, like for you or for a celebrity that lives in LA? Is there like a code in AA where you can go and share and people are not going to sell your shit to paparazzi? Because like Robert Downey Jr. goes to AA in LA. And I'm always like, is
No,
somebody going to take a picture of him or something? Like, or is there like a
You know,
code?
no, there's no codes, there's no nothing, but that's interesting. So I never think along the terms of that. I am you, you are me, I am everyone in my meeting. I am not, just because I was born into my family or I did a TV show doesn't make me any different than anyone. I get that it's a different situation, but like my story is my story. You want to hear it? Let's talk. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those that actually show up in the idea that you're talking about that have the problem. It's not everyone else. It's the self-centered individual who thinks that everyone cares what they're talking about because they're so and so that has
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've witnessed it. I've witnessed
Yeah.
it. The rest of us who just show up and like, this is my home, this is my group, these are my people.
It must somehow work though, because I've never heard of any of like a celebrity's information being leaked, right? And so from a meeting, and so like maybe there's a meeting in Malibu that only famous people go to, or like are they going somewhere different, or are people in AA just trying to respect them? Because you never hear anything.
No, I feel like all of the above, right? I mean, you have your meetings where they're at and where
Have
we're
to
all
be.
the same.
Yeah.
Where
You know what I mean, right? Like people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I love that that's actually a topic right now because I've never really thought about it other than what I was saying, how
Okay.
people would show up and
Okay.
they're the problem.
Yeah.
Because if you show up, like I believe, as is, your story, besides maybe, I have a thing with celebrity if we get down to it. Like, what does
Okay.
that word even mean,
Right, right, right.
And who fucking cares?
Right.
Like,
Well, but a lot of people would like information could be valuable. You know what I mean? If somebody was like, "This is what Eminem said in his fucking AA meeting in Detroit," somebody might like
which
pay for
is
that information.
right, which is so awesome. And if Eminem, which he is, I love that we're talking about him because
Well, he
that's like
goes
to
to
define
12
him.
step. He talks
Right, I
about
love
it.
it. No, I
But
was,
I've
I'd like,
never heard anything leaked that he shared. So people obviously are actually respecting him.
right. And I would imagine, like, I don't know. I would think that what he said, because we are taught to be honest. So that's brutally honest. So what he's talking about in there, I would think that depending on the situation, that would be his truth. And
Right.
that's wherever you go, there you are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay. So when you first disclosed because I remember you posted, I think, I feel like maybe even 60 days in your story. I was just looking at your feed, but did it feel hard to put that back out there or no?
the freer I got, the more truthful I was, the louder I was in my recovery, the better I felt. And the truth, like there's another one, the truth will set you free, period. So like, that's on me, and like, I can't hold that shit in. And this is who I am. And the more I come to terms with who I am and why and what that means, and then the principles and take those into my life. And I'm like, principles, what does that mean? Okay. Oh, and then I'm like, oh, well, those are a lot of words, right? Let me do the definition. Oh, and this is how I'm supposed to live my life in all my affairs. Okay. All right. That doesn't seem so hard. Well, honesty is the first one.
Yeah, true.
I got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Nothing to hide because I can't sit in that feeling of hiding stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think obviously there was a ton of support, right? Like you can just see it. There was like a lot of outpouring support. I have found social media to actually be more supportive than I think the reputation it gets. You know what I mean? Like for
I
me
feel
personally, I get it.
I
I
agree
know
with
there's
you.
bad shit out there, but it's a pretty supportive place. I met you on social media,
And I met you. I think that I agree with you. I think that what you're putting into it is sort of what you're going to get. So the arenas that we play in,
Right.
I mean, the game of life, the sobriety in social media is strong. It's
Totally.
powerful. It's love. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
An incredible group. And then I think when you're using health and wellness and like you're uplifting people or you're giving them hope, it's a beautiful thing. Once you start getting into conversations about obviously politics and religion and worldly events and choosing sides, you're fucked.
Yeah, totally. Yep. I agree with that.
Someone's going to have something to say about, and it depends if you want to engage with that. I personally don't. Like, I used to post everything and my truth and this and that. And then I was like, okay, you can stop talking about, what you think about the vaccines, talking about which president you hate. Stop talking about, you just shut up. No one needs to hear it.
Right. I like what you just said about the arenas you play in. I mean, that's gonna determine a lot of like what you're getting back in, what you're putting out in the space that you're playing in, like you said.
Yeah.
So
Right. Well, because
what does a day look like for you? What does the average day look like for you now?
thank you for that question. I'm giving myself time to just fully be present and like feeling what that feels like. If I'm uncomfortable, if I'm in pain, if losing my brother, if it's addiction, like, I don't have a job right now and that's okay, but what does that look like? Do I want one? Where does my voice stand and how should I be helping others? All these things that like I'm talking about as I'm saying them are outside things. So here I come back to my daily is trying to that girl, who is she? What's going on with her? In the end, it's going to be about paying it forward, about being of service to others, because that's how we both know we get outside of our self-centeredness, and that's torturous. So I'm really sort of setting the stage one day at a time for how I want my life to look. And I want it to be full of honesty, and I want it to be full of kindness and joy and love. And I want to pay it forward. I want to be in, the service of others. And what is that going to take from me? Obviously, if I can't give it to myself, I can't give it to anyone else. So I'm really working down to that, to like on the daily. And I tell you, it is not an easy job. We think we just wake up and like, oh, life happens. You can live like that. I can't. Not you, but someone can live like that. I personally can't. Like, life doesn't just happen. I am now realizing all these unsigned contracts that I signed with God that life should just happen. No, I have to make life happen. I have to be in acceptance of sort of like what is, why that is like that, and then take contrary action and make my life happen. I'm like, oh shit, I have to do that? You mean I can't hire someone to do it for me? Oh, okay. Right. Got it. Okay. So that's what I'm really one day at a time working on right now, and what that's going to look like, right? I just hit 50. That's like a sweet spot. So, like, I have the second half to get this and to get it good and to stay connected and to pay it forward so someone like my brother won't lose his life. And that's kind of like what I got. And on the daily, it looks like I wake up and I have the conversations with God and I do my readings and I do share them on my Instagram. So other people, everyone's like, thank you, I needed that. Thank you. Thank you. Whether they don't have the books, I'll supply it for you. And then I get to a meeting, which now I'm working harder with my sponsor. So what does that look like? And then I try to be of service. And then I try to do something to interact to where maybe it can cause a bigger ripple. But I got to go slowly with that because I'm still in the nitty gritty. Like, I'm going to work step one as long as I can, even though in AA I'm on step 5. Because when I get to NA step 5, whoo, I'm not messing around. Like, I want to change every single part and cellular being, whatever this is. I want to change it all and be okay with who I am at the end of that.
Well, I actually really want to talk to you when you're done with your NA 12 steps. We should talk again because I want to know
Oh
like
my,
what was your favorite and what you liked about it. I really want to reconnect at that point.
I would love that. And I want to turn this conversation around and I want to hear your side of it as well. So
Okay.
we'll make that
Okay.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love, love, love to do that. Last question I want to ask you. You just mentioned contrary action. I love that idea. We're all supposed to do contrary action. What is like an example for you of an instance where you want to do something, but you take contrary action and it's better for you? Like, go to a meeting when I don't want to, work out when I don't want to. Like, what is a contrary action for you?
Well, so my brain is programmed in one way, right? So whatever my brain is telling me to do for right now, I'm going to do the opposite. I do like to work out. I've slowed down a little, so it's kind of easier to get that done. But like, this is the silliest. It's not. It's actually a big, huge thing. I walk down when I'm walking on the street, when I'm walking on the beach, wherever I'm walking. If something's in my path and it looks like a piece of trash, I have no right to walk by it. I have every right to take contrary action, pick that shit up and put it in the trash can.
Okay. I like
And
that
that
one.
on the smallest scale goes for everything else. You know what I mean? And food. I have a choice in everything that I put in my body. If I could pause, if I could slow down and take contrary action to what I normally would do to sort of abuse myself or yummy, like get off on it, it's giving me more time to do what it is that you and I are doing right this minute, which is called living, right? Being in
I
the
I
moment.
love that one because it's another thing with your interviews that I really related with. My audience knows I've talked about this a lot. My addiction has come back big time with food, with binging over the years. I have never gotten a handle on it ever, the whole time. I mean, I work out and there are days when I do okay. My husband's really healthy. That's helpful when he's in the
Yeah.
house. That's helpful, but that's my big thing. That's where it all went. And I've heard you say that as well, but I really like the idea of what you just said about contrary action because I know that with like the picking up trash thing, but contrary action, like if it's outside service, but contrary action myself with a food choice. I really like that idea. I've never thought of it that way.
Right. I love it. Well, we're working on that too. So in my NA process of like all we're doing is we're substituting the word drugs. Really, food is my first addiction, which it seems like it's yours too. And so those moments of that unmanageability and those choices, because we can't just be abstinent from food. So we have choice. And as humans having a choice, there's where we kind of get all fucked up. So it's really powerful if you're still working with a sponsor to go back and work your 12 steps around food. I guarantee you it will change. And you and I are in this together. We can do this together. We can obviously we talk outside of here. So
Yeah.
we can kind of check in and
I would
you
love
know
to do that. I would love to do that because I know I need to do like the CODA steps. I'm super codependent on my husband, and he relapsed, and it was a whole fucking thing. And he's better now,
oh
but he's
thank
okay now.
god.
He's got 60 days, which is great, but it's been very chaotic for a while. So
Congratulations. Yes, I can
with the food
imagine.
thing, I really, really, I love that idea. And
Oh,
yes, let's check in because
especially when all that's going on around you,
yes,
food's gonna it's
well, that's what I
ooh,
did.
you're in.
And I had a bunch of people over this past year, like my friends in recovery say, like a friend of his who knew it was insane was like, I can't believe you haven't used yet to me. And I was like, yeah, I know. I mean, I never even thought about
You're
it.
like,
But
what do
what
you
I
mean? I ate
have
a whole
done,
pizza last night.
yes, is absolutely,
Oh,
dude, Eden, there was a period of time for probably 6 months where every single day I would buy a whole box of Wheat Thins, the exercise
I
one. And
totally
I know
understand.
right? And I know it
I
sounds like, oh, wheat thins, whatever. No, when you eat the whole box, it's like 3,000 fucking calories. And I would eat an entire box every single day. I'm eating them in the parking lot as I walk to the car. So it's like, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, my addiction did come back. I didn't shoot heroin, but I ate a bunch of wheat thins while he was gone.
And I gotta tell you, it might sound stupid to someone who's listening if they're not one of us, but it's real. And I'll tell you the fat food thing, and I know oh so well what you're talking about. I do everything you do. It's like it's almost harder than being abstinent from a drug and working your program because we have a choice, and that choice is like, all right, what are you made of now? Woo.
Right. Yes. But looking at it as contrary action is very
Yes,
empowering versus
yes, yes,
restrictive.
yes, yes,
It's
yes,
not like don't eat this because it's not good. It's contrary action. I know from my recovery is going to ultimately make me stronger, better able to serve. That's like a super
yay,
empowering way to
yay.
look at it. Okay, actual real
Yeah.
last question because
What?
I just thought of
Anything
this
you
too.
want.
So, do you have like a reformer at your house? Do you go to a Pilates studio? Do you walk? Do you do yoga? What do you do now for fitness?
So because I was so involved in like one of my addictions is fitness every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, shut the fuck up. Stop. Right? Like let's stop. Let's get this together because it's not about your outside, it's about your inside. So I pulled it back and I started doing Pilates. I was doing it at a friend's studio like 3 days a week, right? I'm also at an age where, and then I could see my body shifting a little, but I needed my mind to shift. So I had to pull it back. And now I'm really happy and I'm back at Barry's boot camp right now. Yeah,
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm just
Okay.
doing double floors and I'm really, really, really enjoying it. And I can see like I'm getting like tighter and I don't need as much as I used to because the brain isn't like in that hamster wheel of obsession. So I'm really just trying to
Right. Okay.
take
Okay.
care of, and then if I feel like I need to go do a day or two of Pilates, I'll go do a day, I'll do what is feeling right. I'm really about taking care of myself and loving myself and right now. So whatever that looks like, and most likely less is more considering where I'm at. It used to be more is more. No, more is more than that, and more is better than that. Yeah, no, we
Yeah.
know. No,
Yeah.
less is more.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today.
Oh my God, are you kidding? I would do this with you all the time. And I would love to, when I am done with my 12 steps in NA, that you and I regroup. That would be just, I think, a fun process for yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and for my people to listen to too, and hear, the beginning of the process and then the end of the process and to see where you're at. And I think that would be really cool. So I want to we have each other's numbers now. I want to stay
Please, I would
connected.
really like that and get to know you more. Like I can say that I love you after talking to you for an hour and just like
I love you
I
too.
feel you and we get one another.
Well, you did that day with Clubhouse too. It was interesting. I could tell when you DM me, I was like, she was really listening to me, and by the way, that's an example of social media that was a cool thing, those Clubhouse meetings when everything was
It
closed
was
was
really
pretty
cool. It
cool,
was really cool. And I was really
Yeah,
grateful for that too. That was like, and I was sort of like not doing meetings on the outside of that. So it was really helpful for me. Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too at that time. Well, there weren't as many. And around here, in Southern California, they were usually closed. And, I had a hard time with Zoom meeting, but I don't know. Also, I had my studio
Right.
during
So you were,
COVID, which was difficult, Yeah, so I was enmeshed with that. It ended up being fine. We built an outdoor space and we were able to sell and it went well. But
I'm excited to
it
hear,
just,
to hear your story and how
yes.
similar
Okay, awesome.
our lives are.
No, we
Yeah.
really are. And that day when I was looking at your Instagram, I was like, we're the same person. If my dad had been famous, we're the same.
Hey, or I mean, no, we're very. I can see it. I see it. I appreciate you
Yeah.
a lot, and I hope
Well,
that
thank
anything
you.
I
I
said, or
appreciate you.
however honesty, or whatever that looks like, has hit somebody something somewhere. I don't know what that looks like, but I really hope that I have. And if again, that if anyone
Well,
ever needs to reach out or has this whatever, I am 100% available.
actually, let's tell everybody where they can find you, what your Instagram is, or all your social
I pretty
media.
much use my Instagram. It's Eden Sassoon, two S's, two O's, and that's it. And I respond to everyone. Like all my friends are like, "Yeah, these are people. These are individuals. If they need, if someone is trying to engage in a conversation, you engage back. Like sometimes to the extent where it could be like I've had to stop, but I'm not one.
Yeah.
We are all in this together, So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying, I'm open that, and if someone does talk to me, I'm right there.
Well, that's very, very helpful. Thank you so much.